stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with anyone in the public who has comments about anything that's not on the agenda or subject to a public hearing. Stephen?
Good morning, everybody. Hope
Just state your name for the record.
that's no. Excuse me, Stephen Jacobs. I was here 2 weeks ago and stood before you and raised some questions. Excuse me, about the proposal to buy the 2 School Street property, including questions about 1, the board's transparency, the intended use of the property, and 3, the funding of the purchase. As to transparency, I didn't hear any good reason why notice of the issue, not necessarily the actual resolution, was held up and not made public until it was 4:28 Friday afternoon, before the Tuesday meeting, when first there was a work session and then afterwards a special meeting which authorized bidding on the property and about funding the purchase through borrowing. 2 weeks have now gone by from that session, almost 2 weeks from the auction when apparently the town had the winning bid. And there's still nothing on today's public agenda about this. It's on the agenda for the executive session from which the public is excluded. On that agenda, there's an item, quote, potential property acquisition. So first,
Just to pause you there, that's not the potential acquisition that we're discussing.
okay, that's.
It has to do with CPF properties.
Okay, that's fine. It doesn't really change my point as to why 2 weeks later is the public not being given some relevant facts here and an opportunity to raise whatever questions there are and express any concerns. As to the use of the property, at the work session 2 weeks ago, public was told again and again that the use of the property was still undefined. But lo and behold, the paper reported that the day after the auction, the Community Housing Board welcomed the news of the results of the auction. And one of the liaisons was quoted as saying that one of the better uses might be for housing. As for funding a purchase, if there's going to be a purchase, if the property is likely to be used for housing, as seems to be what all signs indicate, the public should have an opportunity to weigh in on how the purchase should be funded. Should it be funded from the housing fund, which as of December had just under $1,400,000 in it? Or should it come from borrowing that would increase the town's budget and people's property taxes? Some may argue that it's premature to use the housing fund because we're not certain that that's what this property would be used for. And as to that, it strikes me as though maybe there's a simple solution, an easy solution, a solution that would save money in the long run. And I would urge that the board consider it and let the public know if there is some legal or compelling other reason why it wouldn't work. And that solution would just work like this, or something like this, with the expectation that the property would be used for housing. The money to buy the property and develop the property comes out of the housing fund. If in the course of things somehow plans change, something arises that it no longer makes sense to use it for housing, then the town would go out and borrow the money to fully repay the housing fund for the cost of the purchase, for whatever else they spent, for any lost interest. And that strikes me as though it would be a sensible and cost-saving solution, particularly since, if I heard correctly, a couple of weeks ago, the supervisor indicated that the costs of the bond anticipation note would be $20,000 to $30,000. I don't recall precisely, I didn't go back and listen to the tape, as to whether it was just for legal fees, although I had the impression that that was just for the 1 year note. So a solution, if it's in fact workable, along the lines of what I suggested, would seem to fit the bill and save the town money. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the physical audience? Please.
Hello, Paige Dorsey, 23D West Neck Road, Shelter Island. I just wanted to know how come I haven't, 4 letters that I've written to the town or to the building department, I haven't gotten one response back. Things that with the merger, with the change of use, because it's going from wet to, I'm talking about the Grady Riley or GR landscaping. How come none of that is taken into consideration? This is 14 months going on, you know, with this whole thing, and nothing has been removed except for the dead Christmas trees. It's not very, needs to be addressed and closed because it's getting crazy, you know, with all the stuff that's left there. And, you know, the top floor is he's only gaining half of a building. And I had heard that Florence had mentioned that he has the okay to go in, there's only one business allowed, but there's still 4 rentals on the property on a half an acre. And the fire commissioners, I think, need to be weighed in on all this because they wanted to see plans and stuff, I heard, and they haven't gotten anything back. And only, you know, like out of all of you, I've asked several times, you know, different board members and the whole board about coming over, and only one person has just recently come over. And I'm very appreciative that other people have come over to, you know, like my friends and stuff have come over, but I'm very thankful that, you know, the one board member did come over, and I just would like this all to end. This is a long time now. Thank you.
Anyone else in the physical audience? Anyone on Zoom?
Yeah, he's trying to raise his hand.
Jan, are you raising your hand or just agreeing?
Yes, I would like to speak.
Okay.
Okay, so Stephen,
State your name for the record, please.
Jan Sudo.
Okay.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Stephen Jacobs just asked the question about the public hearing or public discussion of this potential 2 School Street acquisition. So I'd like to ask supervisor to address this before I go on to the rest of my comments.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? I didn't hear the question.
I would like to know, Stephen Jacobs just raised the issue that there is no public discussion of this acquisition, 2 School Street. And so I would like to ask first whether you plan to hold some public hearing or public discussion of that potential acquisition or not? Or is that going to be only held in secret?
No, it will be on the agenda in the future. We have not had a work session since 2 weeks ago. And also we had an employee who was going to just do some legwork on potential uses, municipal uses on the property, who was out sick last week.
So when in the future, because I understand that the town has 30 days to close this purchase.
It will be sometime. I don't know exactly when.
Is that going to be before the closing or after the closing?
Most likely after the closing, so that we can do proper.
So basically, you're not going to have discussion, it will be fait accompli without any public input to this. Is that the case? Is that what you're planning to do?
Yes, because that's the way it works on a bid. That we won the bid and we will close and we will continue. And the reason we did it the way we did it is so that we could look at all of the possibilities.
Okay, but why is public excluding for having any say into this? Or offering concerns and comments and so forth. What's the justification for this?
There will be public discussion as we move forward, but we are legally within our rights to the way that we did.
I'm not talking about legal rights. I'm talking about, you're spending taxpayers' money and voters' money, and you're basically keeping public completely out of this.
We are not keeping the public
Until
completely
it's
out.
fait accompli. Do you think this is a proper transparency that the town is obligated to provide to its taxpayers and voters?
There will be public discussion.
Yeah, but after the
Taxpayers
closing.
will,
So that's what's to discuss when it's already done.
we did the process as we were legally required to do it. We brought everyone in 2 weeks ago.
I see. Well, then let me ask another question. Do I correctly understand the town did not have to pay any deposit in conjunction with this auction? So technically speaking, the town could still decide not to proceed with this purchase
That is not
without
correct.
any financial consequences.
No, that's not correct. Any winning bidder had to put down 10%. And
I see.
if we choose not to go forward, we would lose that deposit.
So, so the town already advanced this 10% deposit?
That's correct.
I see. Well, I guess so much for the openness and letting the taxpayers to weigh in on this potential transaction. So basically, you guys, town board, decided this is what you want to do. It was not in a budget. The taxpayers will have not an opportunity to weigh in and have a public discussion whether to buy it or not to buy it, whether there will be no permissive referendum because you guys shortcutted it by going to this 1-year anticipation note and avoiding 5-year bond. So this is all accurate, correct?
There will be public discussion, and if we choose to go with more than a bond anticipation note, there will be the opportunity for permissive referendum. And if
But
that
what's the point?
permissive-
What's the point when the town by this time already owned the purchase?
If the
purchase
permissive
property?
referendum should fail and we wanted to use it for municipal purposes and not community housing purposes, then we would have to divest ourselves of the property.
I see. Okay, so since we're not having public discussion, but it's a public comment period, I would like to again restate my concerns about this purchase. One is the price, because the price is almost 800,000. The vacant 3/4 acre lot, there were 2 transactions in 2025. One was for 450,000. The second one was for 375,000. Okay, so there's 2 vacant lots that sold for about half of what the town bid on this property. So how can the town justify spending 800,000 for this property? If the property was bought with the understanding that the house is somehow could be restored, which is not quite sure, which is not certain at all, because my understanding is that nobody at the town board has seen the house prior to bidding. But let's just assume then the price is 350,000 less than the assessed value, which is full market value. It is not clear how much that's gonna cost to restore this property. It's in pretty bad shape looking from the outside. And there may be additional cost to adapt to whatever use you plan to make out of this house. So that property may turn out to be quite a bit after it's being restored. It might cost a lot more than the current assessed value. So my conclusion to this, you may agree with it or not, but I don't think this is, considering the price, this is such a good value for the town. So that's one concern I have about price. The second one is about the use. I have heard that this might be used for relocating senior center from the basement of the medical building, because I guess it's not luxurious enough for the customers or the staff. But this house is in residential C zone. So how can the house be adapted to this use when it's in residential zone? Are you gonna create spot zoning or something like that? Second, is that correct that this is C zone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the second idea I heard that might be for the fit center relocated from the school because I guess it's not convenient enough for the users or staff. So I have the same question. It's a C-zone residential property. How is that going to be adapted to the use as a fit center? It's clearly not a residential use. And at what cost? What's that going to cost? Third, we've heard ideas that this will be for affordable housing. So this is single family home, which will need restoration and I guess adaptation to have at least, two families there. So I don't know. So that's going to be further cost to adapt to this use. And either by subdividing the house to do two units or adding an IDU. So that does not sound like an efficient use of taxpayers' money. I think the more efficient use of the money might have been buying a vacant lot and building something that's right away more suitable for affordable housing. And third, and then additional issue with respect to housing is if this is for the housing, is that property going to be financed from the community housing fund, which I think is appropriate because this was narrowly approved by the voters, but I don't think there was ever voters and taxpayers have never approved financing affordable housing from their property taxes. So that would be creating a precedent, and affordable community housing fund would be a more appropriate source of financing for this. The third issue, I have a process. Stephen Jacobs already touched on this. This process was done completely backwards, and I voiced my opinion 2 weeks ago at the town board work session that there should have been facilities master plan first, detailing all the properties that the town wants to buy, and then possible acquisitions and investments plan. Then there should be a public discussion. There should be permissive referendum for taxpayers to weigh in whether they agree with the town board for this investment and spending plan. And eventually there should be acquisitions or investment as approved by the voters. So this has been completely shortcutted and it's done backwards. We're acquiring property first, then we're thinking what to do with them, what use we might make out of it, and taxpayers are completely shut out of the process, have nothing to say about it. And finally, my last issue is the context, which is the financial management or spending of town versus taxpayers' ability and willingness to pay for this. Okay, the taxpayers, particularly the ones which have inland properties, have already been burdened this year by the reassessment and the cost of library expansion. Okay, my belief is that the taxpayers are not favorably predisposed to funding all this stuff anymore, and this is evidenced by the first school budget and which was defeated, and also rejection of funding of History Museum by taxpayers' money. The town spending in 2026 budget increased by about 6%, but the tax increase was only 2%. And this was done at the expense of drawing deeper into the reserves, I believe by 900,000. So we can only assume that this 2% increase was driven by political considerations, given the election in 2025, in November 2025, and perhaps with the town board's desire to lessen the tax burden on taxpayers, which already been hit by the reassessment and the library expansion. Okay, but they can only be kicked down the road. You cannot increase spending by 6% a year and then increase taxes by only 2%. Eventually, this is going to catch up, and we're going to face strong tax increases in following years, perhaps as early as this year for the next year budget, at the end of this year for the next year budget. The things like, of the ad hoc acquisitions like that, other things, they just increase tax burden on taxpayers. And as I said, you can only kick down the road for long enough. for only some time, and then that's eventually going to result in very high tax increases. So my conclusion was that I would appeal to the town to reconsider this purchase, given those facts, but given that the town already paid 10% deposit of this winning bid of 800,000, I guess that's a water under the bridge. Would the supervisor or anybody else from the town board would like to address any or all of my comments?
Jan, we appreciate your comments. We're not going to address them today, but you raise valid points, and they will be considered by this board as we go forward looking at what we're going to do with this property.
All right. I mean, I am extremely disappointed by the lack of transparency and this ad hoc discussion purchases of the properties without, with all the taxpayers and voters being completely excluded out of it and doing the process backwards. This is not how this town should operate. I mean, there's, I guess, nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom?
Hi, I'm Lynn Weicker. Yes, I want to talk about the forest, not the trees, because I think the last two speakers talked about the trees. The forest is this: we have an economy that's not doing well. And on top of that economy, the people of this island who are middle class and working class, they're paying twice as much for car insurance. Their property insurance is going up. Electricity rates are out of sight. And on top of that, we have to worry about our property taxes. So that there's a lot more pressure on the middle and working class on this island than there was before. Of course, wealthy people can pay their property tax increases and they may not complain. But the rest of us, it's really problematic. So times are changing, and the town board has to step up and start looking at how they can control their costs. There are two sides to budgets. There's a revenue side and there's an expense side. So we need to think about how we can increase our revenues other than property tax, which is 70% of our budget. Think about how you can increase the revenue, but also think about how you control your costs. Because up to now you haven't, but from now on we have to. The economy, it's not good times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Jacobs again, just a brief comment about the process for the tree we've been talking about. And that's in the paper, one of you alluded to an inspection, apparently before the closing, if I read between the lines correctly. And my comment is that if in fact there is going to be an inspection before the closing, and if the inspection would provide the basis for either seeking a reduction in the bid or backing away from the bid altogether, I think the public is entitled to contemporaneous knowledge of what the inspection showed. And when I say entitled, do I mean legally entitled? No. You can try to get away with as little disclosure as is legally possible. Your lawyers can tell you that. But as a matter of good governance, good representative governance, I suggest that if in fact that's the situation, the public be allowed in and the veil be lifted. Thank you.
We will move on to our next agenda item, and that is the ethics code update. And we have had this before us for a bit for everyone to be able to take a look at what the ethics board brought, and if there were any changes that we needed to make in order to set the public hearing next week. And this has been on the town website in its current draft, redlined, for everyone to take a look at. I think I have like a few edits that I will give you, Thomas, that were more just Scrivener type things. But I didn't know if anyone else had any comments.
I just had a comment, maybe it's just a clarification. So it's on, let's see if I can get this, 8-19. And it's like item G, and it says to provide periodic ethics training. And I was like, to whom? Like, was that to the town board? Was that to the other boards? Like, I was like, who's getting the training?
of the
Who is getting the target of the training? That part was just like a question mark for me. That was like my main one. So I think it's a great idea.
Yes, it would be to the town. It would be employees, committee people, so broad training.
So in general.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had a couple of things.
Mhm.
So my first one is, now that we are opening this up,
Which section?
I'm like 8.4, but in general. Since we're opening this code up to essentially everybody and anything, it's not bound by financial benefit, it's just any benefit. How are we defining a benefit? Because this I can see being weaponized very easily. And I just want to know if there are parameters on what we consider a benefit. Is it just goodwill, or is it like, what are the bumpers on this bowling alley? So that was one of my things. We're now including a household member in the sort of the definitions, which I understand, but when you have like multiple people renting a house now, they're not family, they're household members, so now there's like this added level to the spider's web. So now you have even more people connected in this tiny town who could fall under, this could become complicated quickly. So, just in the first, just reading the very, very first in 8.4, prohibition on use of town position for personal or private gain. It becomes so vague when you don't define the type of benefit. It reads, no officer or employee shall use their town position or official powers and duties to secure a benefit for themselves, a relative, household member, or any private organization in which the employee is deemed to have an interest. I mean, that could read that anything we do as a town board to improve the town itself is a benefit to ourselves and everybody around us. So I feel like there just needs to be some kind of parameter on what a benefit is or how we're going to define a benefit. So that was just one of the things, and I might just be reading it wrong. I mean, I've tried to, I don't know, it just seemed like it just opens it wide up to all kinds of
Do you have a
wacky.
suggestion?
Not really. That's why
Yeah,
I'm
I was
like
like,
using it, like, because I want to know, just, am I crazy? Am I just reading it wrong? And everybody else has a different interpretation of what a benefit could be defined as, and I'm just missing something. And then some of the other, let's see.
Is that something that, like, as Liz just asked, like, for us to reword, or would you like, we don't have anyone from the ethics committee on to
Yeah,
talk
I'm
about,
just-
like, what
Right, it's really left to the trier of fact.
Right.
It doesn't, this is pretty normal language when there is going to be a quote-unquote trial, or it's going to be reviewed by the ethics board.
And so the degree of benefit would be weighed by the Board of Ethics, and they would make it, okay. As long as, like, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding, and it's not like, okay. Then another thing I had was, it doesn't have page numbers, so in Article 2, Administration, 18-8, yeah, and then D2C. D2C. Where it talks about complaints may be made anonymously.
Oh, I heard that.
I was like, how realistic is that?
The ethics board has gone, like, has weighed that and had a lot of discussion about that because the concern being that, one, you get anonymous complaints that are just from left field. But then the ethics board would take that into account. The reason for wanting to keep it anonymous is that people might not come forward. If someone has an ethics complaint about their supervisor, they may not want to come forward and like put themselves out there. In a small town such as ours, it's likely that, you know, people can figure it out. If someone does do something anonymously, it may not get the same
Wait.
look at, because they can't go back to the person to say, hey, like, this was, you know, like, we can't investigate this further unless you actually step forward.
Right.
But then there's also, someone could step forward and they could look at it and deliberate it, but then someone may, like, it may end up being, they could figure, the person, you know, the person being investigated could figure out where it came from. So they're trying to walk a very fine line here in allowing people to come forward. And
It's a tough situation. In other ethics situations, a complaint or whatever you want to call it is not considered if it's anonymous. It's actually thrown in the garbage.
Right. Well, yeah, I feel like this makes it really hard for follow-up, and it sort of sets an unreasonable expectation. If someone supplies a complaint anonymously and then somehow it gets out who it was, does that fall back on the Board of Ethics as a liability? Or, you know, it doesn't necessarily seem like a reasonable expectation.
they realize, and that they would be, you know, if they know who the person is and the person wants to keep it anonymous, they will tell them, this may not stay anonymous. Do you want us to proceed?
Okay.
So it's, yeah, they're,
All right, so,
And if it's serious enough, it probably maybe shouldn't stay anonymous, but.
yes.
I mean, I guess
exactly, yeah.
having it in here, it'll be confidential to the extent consistent with due process, but I mean, that's sort of saying it's anonymous until it's not, surprise.
Yes, that is kind of what they're saying.
So,
There might be situations where they might be able to, you know,
yeah.
be anonymous, and so taking it out,
Corroborated,
further disclose
Yeah.
if it's not necessary. I think it just gives optionality, is how I read this.
And then I had another one right above that in 818D1. The town officers' employees may request advice from the ethics board concerning their personal compliance or the compliance of an employee that they supervise with the code of ethics. Oh, I guess that
You
makes
said
sense.
D1?
Yeah, because the word compliance seemed weird. I mean, I would feel like concerning their personal duties and compliance, although I guess it could be outside of.
Sure. What
No, I guess that works, never mind, sorry. When I read it the first time, it didn't read right, but now I see. No. Oh, okay. And this is my last one, I promise.
Yeah, it's okay.
821, penalties. H. Town board response to the ethics board. The town board shall, within 45 days of receipt of a written referral pursuant to this section from the ethics board, respond in writing and state in sum and substance the town board's intention with respect to the referral. So the Board of Ethics wants us to provide them with however we decide to deal with their recommendation. So like, let's say they have a case, they write up a recommendation and give it to the town board, then they want us to respond to them how we're going to respond to their recommendation.
From an accountability standpoint, that seems okay.
But 45 days, do we want to put that time limit on it?
Oh,
Because
well-
depending on, you know what I mean, like,
60.
yeah.
But couldn't you just write back and say,
We need more time.
we need more time, you
Yeah.
know? It's just, I think it would just be, I think it's just like putting something like, we're looking into it, or we've made this move, or we're considering this move, and the other move, you know?
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if we wanted to lock ourselves into like 45 days.
But it doesn't,
Depending on how
I don't read it like,
meetings fall.
I don't read it that it has to be resolved, it just has to read it that like, we got it, you know?
Is
So we have to
there
respond.
a reason to have a longer time to respond, or is there a reason to want things resolved quickly?
No, I think you want things resolved quickly. I just understand how things go. Like if it's over the Christmas holiday or something and we get, we get something on the 15th and then we don't really get back together until January, whatever. I don't want it to be,
But then we could just
someone
write,
complaining, oh, you can't, I don't know.
It could be 60 days, I mean, I don't think it matters that much. And it's within 60 days, we can respond in 5.
Okay,
Mhm.
So keep it at 45 or change to 60?
I think it's okay at 45, because I think in that, at least this is my point of view, in that scenario, we would just write them back and just be like, hey, it's the holidays. We'll be getting back, we will, because we could respond within that time to say that we will be taking more time. And I feel like that would be like, that time window is gonna be, like, that would be the only thing where like logistically would come up. And if
okay.
we really needed more time to consider, then we would respond to them and say, we're considering.
All right.
Yeah, I feel like it gives us two cycles of 3-week periods or to cover our bases.
All right. And that's all I have.
Question I had, who's providing legal counsel to the ethics board?
Right now, we are in the process of looking for new legal counsel. So
Stephen is no longer involved with the ethics board. Did we make that decision?
it was a request by the ethics board and we affirmed it. I mean, it's also Steve Leventhal. It was a joint termination.
You spoke to both parties.
Yes, I did.
Brokered an agreement.
Didn't so much broker an agreement as both parties said, it's time to move on. All right, so then we can proceed with this draft then.
I think so, yeah.
So we'll put this on for, we'll set the public hearing at the February 2nd meeting, and we will hear it on February 23rd.
I was the only one here, so you want to give him up one.
Yeah, actually, I'm also, do we know where Ken is?
He's working on this.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Because Kevin and Bo are here together.
Here, though.
Okay.
Right here.
Oh, he is, okay. Yeah, so we were going to rejigger the agenda and move, skip over the WQ application for the moment and talk about your partnering with the town about the work barge, the vacuum, and also just, Bo, to speak about the status of the work.
That'd be great, because I got it.
Yes, yeah, good idea.
I come up here about once a year.
Maybe over here. Over here.
And just so everybody knows, we have a hard stop at 10:30. So if we don't get through everything on the agenda, we should, but just in case. Just letting everybody know, we've got a lot between potential property acquisitions, talking about bids, contracts, and interviews.
Okay, so I'm just gonna give you, so I was kind of brought into this a little bit at the last minute by Jan Messiano. So there is there's a grant opportunity that she's been working on with the town of Southampton. That, and Bo knows something about it too, so that's why I've asked him to speak to it a little more, but I sat in on a Zoom meeting last week about it. With the town of Southampton to acquire a work barge for waterways work, like the kind of stuff that we do here. putting buoys in, marker buoys, swim lines, et cetera. And also acquiring a VACCON truck, a sucker truck, which we already have one here for the town of Shelter Island. So it would be it was pitched as, the town of Southampton would be the primary on it. And then there was some other villages and us as a smaller town, they included us into it. Village of Southampton, Village of West Hampton, I'm trying to think who the other partners were in there. Quad, right, yep. So anyway, it would be an intermunicipal agreement. The idea is that these would be shared pieces of equipment. So I listened to, what they had to say about it. While I do think on paper, I think it sounds like a really good idea. I'll speak first to the vac truck because I think that's the easiest one for us. We already have a vac truck. We service all our own catch basins and do all that kind of stuff. And so I don't see that as a necessity for us. And then I'll speak to the work too. I think that, while we're in need of a work boat and we know what we're dealing with, I also don't think that it's something that, I just think logistically, and as a collective, they've all raised this as an issue too, that, it's gonna be logistically difficult to try to figure out who gets the boat when do they get to use it, because let's face it, when it comes time to have to put all these things in the water and take them out of the water, everybody's doing it at the same time. So, my personal feeling is, and I'll let Bo speak to the workboat piece of it, because that's the next part of this, but as a collective, I think, look, I want to see us, and I said this to them at the meeting the other day, I'd like to see the town of Shelter Island be a good partner in something like this and appear as somebody, I think these intermunicipal agreements are beneficial to us in times. These two specific things that they're looking for, in my opinion, I think are things that it would be good to have if we wanted to be involved. It would be from a standpoint like if we were in an emergency and we needed to have an extra, like if Mike's vac truck went down and all of a sudden we had some crazy amount of flooding and we needed to be pumping catch basins at a record rate, it would be nice to have something that we could, always call assistance for. I do have that ability also with the county and the state if need be. And the same thing with the workboat. I could see it being something like in a bind or maybe a very specific project that comes up where a use of ours and theirs together might be useful, but I personally don't see it as something that I don't think that would fit for us. I think a lot of what we deal with on Shelter Island and why we have some of the equipment and the amount of equipment that we have here is because we're really very self-sustaining here, because we have to. We have a ferry boat, we have different hours that things operate. If things break overnight, we're not waiting for somebody, they can't just drive a truck from Southampton to here and get here, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's a lot of why we have it, but it's obviously a decision for the board to make as to how you would want to proceed with that. And I know Amber has to look at, there's, what the financial, component is to it. There's a lot of questions to be asked, but I just thought it was good for you to understand it. I was just brought into it last week, so I thought it would be good to be brought before you. And then that couples with now where we're at with the other part of the agenda here which is the workboat.
Let me just interrupt
Go
for a
ahead.
second here. The reason this is on the agenda and like it's sounding very vague is that there is a deadline for this grant application. It's a local government efficiency grant. And it has a deadline of February 4th, and we have a town board meeting on February 2nd. So if we were going to join in with Southampton to sign on to participating in this grant for these two acquisitions, we need to act quickly, and that's why this is on the agenda. But there are multiple questions that still need to be answered, and the storm did not help being able to get some of the information. Because I wanted to talk to Thomas. I have copies of the Village of Southampton's resolutions where they have signed on to this joint application and going forward with an IMA. Unfortunately, I presume you were not able to get a copy of a draft of the IMA that Southampton has.
I haven't seen it yet. no.
Yeah, so I wanted to see whether or not we would have, what kind of fiscal liability we would have. Like, is it only as we use it, do we get billed for it? Or is there a percentage that we would be expected to participate in?
Yeah, and I think Jen would probably be able to, I think Jen is really the person to ask that. She's preparing the whole document for them and has been very involved with their person. But again, like with the storm, I haven't had a lot of time to look at it.
Just to be clear, the acquisition costs are fully covered by the grant?
No, there's a 10% share.
So, I mean, to Ken's point, he said there's certain projects and occasions where it would be nice to have additional equipment. Does it make sense for this to be the additional equipment while we still maintain our own?
Right, and that might be a good, for backup purposes.
Can I ask, so when you had mentioned that sometimes like if you were in a situation where you needed like an extra back truck or whatever, you could get that through the state or the county, and then how does that work? Do you get billed per, I'm just like wondering how does it work?
It
like,
depends.
financially?
I have a pretty good relationship with both of those agencies now, and so if we were in a bind, there's also other townships too. I mean,
Right.
the town of Southold, they all have a lot of this similar equipment. If we were ever in a bind, I could certainly acquire something that wouldn't be a cost to us. We do it.
I'm just like trying to figure out like what is the.
It's more
we're
of a-
already,
Yeah, I mean, we have the ability, I mean, knock on wood,
Yeah.
ours has worked very well and we are able to service it and maintain it ourselves anyway. But yeah, I mean, I have good relationships with the other superintendents and we all help each other out in these kinds of things. So it's a real, we have these sort of, intermunicipal agreements that aren't, hard and fast in writing, but we all look out for each other. So if we were down, a sweeper or a sucker truck or something, I can make a call and say, hey, can you guys help us out? And then when they need help with something, I can go give them a hand too. So that's kind of how we.
and is this like for these two pieces of equipment, is this something that has come up recently? That
Well,
like you
not
needed,
at
like,
all with the sucker truck. The reason the work boat is an issue is because, we were talking about last year about our work boat currently that we have with the, and Bo can speak to the details of that better, is aging. And so maybe just give a little,
Yeah, so-
I mean, aging is putting it nice.
So,
It's aged, I
Aged.
think, yeah.
aged out.
Yeah.
No, the reason that the grant component came up was because Southampton trustees and the other partners were working with Jen to develop a boat and a platform and an IMA on their own. And Jen, since we have a relationship with her as well, thought to herself, hey,
yeah,
wonder if Shelter Island could get involved. So she came to us with that, and I provided some background information a couple of weeks ago, just to keep the ball rolling again with the deadlines, just numbers and figures, nothing, no commitments or anything like that. So that's, she brought it to us for additional consideration, because last year, we had discussed building a new workboat to replace the workboat that the town currently owns. So that process started back in July of '24, where after we had completed all our spring work, we had determined that the boat was getting to the point that it was going to need to be replaced. We knew that that was going to be a lengthy process, primarily just through the design and then implementation phase of the replacement, but also the whole process of deciding. To that end, Ken had asked us to work with a designer. We commissioned a design for a boat specifically built to our purposes. In December, I think it was December of last year, we got authorization to go to bid to receive estimates to actually build that boat. We ultimately received
December of 2024.
December of '24. Yes, forgot we're in '26 now.
Yeah.
Sorry. I looked at that this morning too. So December 24, we received the bids. There was a low bid of 172,000 and change to build the boat as we had designed for our specs. Ultimately, the town board in January or February decided not to pursue that, and we sort of just put a pin in it for the time being. It's now going to be spring of '26. The workboat, following fall work that we had to do, reached the end of its line as far as pushing it without affecting some repairs. We realized that we're going to need the boat, obviously, for this spring and this fall at this point, regardless of how we decide to move forward. So we took the boat up to have, get some estimates for the repair work. The minimal repair work necessary to address our safety concerns came in at, I think, $4,300, $4,400. A more significant repair that would functionally renew the entire deck, all the framing below it, came in at $18,000. That would significantly improve the platform and give it a lot of additional years of service, but it would far exceed the value of the boat and the resale value of it, even after putting the $18,000 into it. We wouldn't be able to get that much for it if we sold it the next day. So after discussing this with Ken, we still think that the best way to move forward is to build the boat that we designed for our purposes. But in the interim, we have to fix the boat that we have now. So we found ourselves pretty much the exact same scenario we were in a year ago. And before we make a decision on whether to do the small fix and get us through, the next 2, possibly 3 cycles of use, or put $18,000 into it, we wanted to get some direction from the board and see if we can go to bid again and potentially pursue this build that will take us approximately a year and a half. Then we're not going to invest $18,000 in this boat, that's for sure. We'll do the quote unquote emergency repair, get us back in service, and we'll keep going accordingly for that period of time. Yep.
So the $18,000 bill, that would include all the work that would be done under the $4,000 repair.
Correct. It would exceed that amount, right? The work itself, right? So rather than just cutting out the rotten patch and replacing that, blasting everything back in, they take everything out that would eventually be rotten, right? If you have some rot here, it's gonna continue on. Remove the deck entirely, remove the rotten stringers entirely, replace all that with composite material, reglass it, and then give it back to us.
And after the $18,000 bill, how many years of service do you think would be added?
The deck would be good for a long time after that, without a doubt. So you have a brand new deck on a 35-year-old hull at that point.
Well, it's not what it's worth after $18,000 worth of work. It's, what's that expense amortized over the additional life?
Right.
So, okay.
So there's always been a question, or the question always comes up, right? How do we pay for these things, right? It's $170,000, almost certainly more than that. It was $172,000 last year. We had proposed at the time that the cost for this build be borne by the Waterways Fund, a fund that is generated by user fees, not tax dollars. It is not something that is in the budget. Or I guess used to offset costs within the budget anymore. We still think that that is the appropriate place for funding to come from, so that way it does not attack a particular person's budget or department's budget, excuse me. And that fund continues to have significant amount of money in there. Money, I think, would cover the build cost as it is, and is now going to be seeing increases yet again from user fees. Concrete dock user fees just went up. So, we believe that that would be a good place for both funding the repair, whatever that direction is, and ultimately replacing the boat when we decide to do that.
Yeah, it would have to, I mean, as far as the repair goes, I mean, we have to think about that imminently. And I also don't have the money in my budget to do the repair. So.
Before
it's
the
gotta come from
18
something.
or the 200,000, all should come from the waterways fund.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
The boat is exclusively used for waterways management. That's why we own it.
As far as partnering with Southampton on the marine barge and the back truck, if it's gonna cost us anything, I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah.
If there's some kind of emergency situation and we need a vac truck or the barge, Southampton's also gonna need a vac truck and a barge, right? Like, if we're having a major rain event and everyone's having significant flooding and we all need to clean out our dry wells, they're gonna wanna use it first. And so I think that,
The impression I got, Meg, from the discussion was really these villages that are really part of the town of Southampton that are, you know, closely affiliated with the
Yeah.
Quad, Village of Southampton.
that makes sense.
Some of those smaller places, even the Village of Sag Harbor, like, it seems like it's like an extension of trying to give them a little bit of help because they don't have the use for those things, but like, I know the Village of West Hampton they have a lot of catch basins.
Yeah.
And they use them for a lot of different things, and so they need help. But I wanted to be like, we're kind of don't really need it, but you know, if it was helpful to, you know, we want to be helpful to our surrounding towns too. That's my,
Also, as far as the marine barge is concerned, West Hampton is 30 miles from here.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll take all day to get a marine barge down there.
Yeah, there would be, from a practical standpoint, a lot of logistical challenges to
Yeah.
having that work.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially if we're at the end of a 7 municipality list.
Uh-huh.
So again, in theory, it makes sense, and it certainly makes sense to consider it, right? I give a lot of credit to Jen for just remembering that and reaching out to us. But from a practical standpoint, you know, okay, Shelter Island has it tomorrow, where's the barge? Well, it's in East Mauritius,
Right,
so why don't you guys go get it,
yeah.
right? And you're responsible for fueling.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I
So,
mean, I think it's a cool concept, and I think maybe it would work well with some other things, but I think with these two items in particular, it doesn't suit us.
Yeah.
Right, and there's a microburst in the Great Peconic Bay.
yeah, I don't think it's.
We do have a capital planning meeting at 2:30 today, and Jen will be on it, so we can also just,
Let her know.
you know, get a few more details that we don't currently have, but also let her know that,
I'm not a fan.
Thanks, but
yes, exactly, yeah, because one of my open questions for her is, are we cutting ourselves off from our own funding application if we partner with Southampton?
Yeah.
That like, oh, no, you Shelter Island have something in with others, so we're not going to look favorably on anything that we might.
Yeah, because I was looking at
Send
that
it.
same grant for a couple different ideas.
But are they also now looking for direction on the workboat?
I think that it leads into that discussion, so we should, because there's a repair that's needed, and so we
Yeah.
have to figure out which way to go, if we're gonna go with the $4,300 repair or the $18,000 repair.
I think it should be $18,000.
how much do we have in the waterways?
$209,000.
And is that,
And then we also
do,
are budgeting to put in an additional 70,000 in 2026. But we have to see where the revenues come in and where other expenditures.
and is that in the budget, like that? The waterways management,
It's
it's balanced, is that in here? Is it, or is it?
part of the general
It's part of the general fund,
It's tab of it's just not broken out.
correct.
Yeah. Because the original request was to spend 200 grand to buy a boat.
No, that part I understand, I'm just like trying to figure out what the actual fund balance is.
Yes, it's part of the general.
That's part of the general fund,
Yeah.
but it's like a broken.
Yeah, but it's not in the,
No.
the financial section, okay.
So yeah, rolling into 2026, we have 209,000. I wouldn't want to start to spend the 70,000 that's budgeted until we see where we come out. As far as rolling over.
So we'll need a decision soon, maybe by that February Just depends on what we're gonna do, because if we gotta get the work done, we have to get it done now.
The boat's in the shop.
It's in the shop.
Yeah, no,
If God wants to know what to do.
it's not
Right.
something that requires a board resolution, so
Okay.
I would say, like, sounds like this board is saying go for the $18,000 fix.
Okay.
Am I
I'm gonna just throw this out there just as a thing,
Okay.
because I just want this, I wanna be clear, because this is, this becomes a topic with equipment. Let's be clear that by fixing this thing, even with the $18,000 fix, let's not lose sight of what the long-term piece of this is gonna be. Because even if we have to build a brand new boat, it's gonna take a year to do it. And it's gonna take some time to make that decision. This is merely a large Band-Aid on a very old vessel. So let's just keep, I just want to, I think it's great. I'm glad that you're in favor of getting it repaired and doing it, but let's not lose sight of the long-term picture here.
Well, then eventually we'll need a new boat.
Yes.
Yeah.
And eventually, and by eventually, Ben, that means sooner rather than later. So.
Yeah, one of my questions was like you say it's 35 years old, so the hull is 35 years old. How old are the engines on the boat?
The engine was replaced in 2015, I think,
Okay. so
16,
these are
16.
getting- okay.
somewhere right in there. So it's a fairly new, and that, arguably is the marketable component that we have right now, if we were to sell the boat.
Right,
And obviously, a full refit of the deck and stringers would add to the current value of it. But again, in my opinion, you're throwing good money after bad, but I understand that's something.
So if you're buying 5 more years of use
Sure,
for
right,
$18,000,
That's a bargain right now.
Yeah,
great.
no, it's for sure, then it's important, and because look, the biggest thing is the safety of it. It's, these are the guys that are on it. The last session of pulling things out of there, something almost went through the hull. So, I mean, this is, and something goes through the hull, that means one of them goes overboard or through the hull, so that's what we don't want.
Right.
So I think this is an important first step, but I implore you to look for the long term here, so.
Yeah.
All right.
One of the things I'd like to do with respect to the long term is similar, like taking the Waterways Fund, now that we're going to start putting money back into it, because we haven't for a few years, is start to look at what are the uses that we do, like bulkheads and things, like that's what we've spent money on before, is let's do some capital planning with respect to when do we think we'd have to replace the next bulkhead? And look at all of our marine assets. I
Like
don't
we
know
do.
if Joe is.
Does Joe have a listing on that?
He does.
Maintenance schedule or?
Yeah, he was
reality?
on the Zoom earlier, but he must have had to jump off for something else.
I mean, we're about to replace the last bulkhead and then, this year, and so, they're all gonna be in really good shape, but they are, some of the oldest, are probably, they're still 20 years, maybe 15 years old, but they usually get a 25 to 40-year lifespan on some of these too. So, I mean, we'll be in good shape, but it's a very good thing.
Yeah, Joe does have a listing of all the
And he
marine
does have a
assets
list.
and, some of the useful lives and estimates and costs. So we need to get back to getting him to finish up that schedule.
Are we in good shape with navigational aids, buoys, swim nets?
Yeah, the Public Works side of the budget, forget what it is.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Has an annual line item for replacing those items, and so we've stayed up with replacing them as needed and making sure that we have everything up to snuff.
yeah, we should create a plan, just like we do for the equipment fund.
Yes.
The Waterways Fund.
Yeah,
and-
exactly.
And replacing significant items like bulkhead stocks, boats.
Mhm.
Then it's now.
Yeah, we just did a lot of work in COVID, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
We did all that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We'll work on the leak after the meeting.
Yes. And
Thank you.
we can talk about this more in capital planning.
Yeah, I'll see you executive for that.
Just put a bucket underneath. Oh, you did?
A garbage
I
can.
got a bigger bucket in the hallway if we need it, so.
Is the hallway leaking?
Don't do anything wrong.
Is the hallway leaking?
No, actually, the skylights, I was gonna give you like good news, the skylights are okay.
Thank God. Yeah, everything's good. So, all right, thank you.
All right.
Next on the agenda is the, you have to,
Eklund?
All right, I'm gonna recuse myself because I helped him with his county application. For this emergency septic.
QI stuff. Off the top of my head, and off the agenda, it is for 59 South Midway Road. They are requesting a $12,000 rebate. They do not need a well relocation, and they do not need, they're not going to put in a pressurized shallow drain field.
Because they're not required to?
Just choosing not to.
Okay.
Usually, it's applicant driven.
Hmm.
You know, it depends on, you know, site, what the site looks like. As well as, we do offer a $4,000
Yeah.
addition for that, but I don't
4,000.
know exactly what the cost is, so sometimes people may not think that the 4,000 will cover the cost and
Yeah.
choose not to.
Oh, God.
So does anyone have any questions or objections? Otherwise, here we go. We will put this on for Monday night. And it was approved by the WQI board.
World, you know, James recused himself.
Yes,
Mhm.
so,
I don't have any questions on
No, question is, should we push it to public hearing? Sure.
it doesn't go to public hearing, it just goes to resolution. Because what we had done with the WQI, just to refresh everybody, especially for those who are new, when we passed the, when we, you know, got the WQI fund piece approved, the town board, the committee and then the town board did a public hearing for all septic grants. So that rather than having to do individual ones for each applicant, we just did a blanket that if it fit within the parameters, we could by resolution approve IA grants. Whereas any other expenditure from that fund is not covered by that blanket and therefore requires separate public hearings. So last year, Cornell Cooperative Extension, we have a shellfish seeding program that we do. And we did a public hearing and then approved that after the public hearing, so.
it. That's helpful, thank you.
And again, this is at the Eklund property at 59 South Midway Road. Just to reiterate.
Nothing.
Yes. Okay, so we'll put that on for a second. All right,
Do you want me to go get?
yeah, Federico, can you grab Meg and tell her she can come back in? She should be outside somewhere or across the hall. Okay, so review the investment policy. Can we do it in 15 minutes?
I don't know, so I guess my first question was, did you guys have a second to read it and look at the notes that I put on there?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, actually, I did not see the notes.
so you have to download it. This is the trick.
This is the trick,
This
yeah.
is the trick.
Yeah.
Um,
I was
So,
wrapping it up.
you know, we can, I don't, obviously.
Want to like just briefly go over it and then we can all like take a closer look.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, just to kind of like ground us, we had on file an older one. I think I sent over like an analysis of just like, hey, I think that there's some things that are missing and needed. And I was at the training. So I was working on drafting it, and I was also able to connect with the state comptroller's office, who gave me kind of a framework from which to start, which was super helpful. And so I started from there and then kind of like built on that. So I put in some notes, so I'll just kind of go through those. I feel like those are like probably, it's dry, so sorry. But basically the the question I had in here was, basically, I kind of filled in, basically, the supervisor is the chief financial officer, because that's how we have it, but I just wrote that in there just so you guys know. The things I wanted to kind of bring up was that, I think in my notes that I had said something about bonding, but for municipalities, I was able to learn that basically we should have an official undertaking is basically what it's called. So we should check with our insurance broker just to make sure that you're covered for the investments, just in case you had too much cold medicine and lost your mind one day and did something wild. I don't know, But they said basically you should check because it's not automatic, but that you should check with the insurance. So that was like kind of a follow-up task.
Yeah,
Is that should be
Positive we have done.
Double
check that and what the limits are.
right. So that was like a thing I just wanted to flag. For this first one, I basically just, like I said, I just am just stating that in this document, I put in the supervisor being the chief fiscal officer of the town. And then the other thing that was a little bit, there was a couple things in the first, the previous investment document that basically the policy points to, which is just like a set of written procedures, like a schedule of things. And so what I'm proposing, because those were never attached to the policy before, would be that we just attach these as a appendix to this policy. So it's all in one place, right? Mm-hmm. And so you'll see, like I refer to that, hey, add as an appendix. And then in the last section, I've forgotten the name, anyway, where it is basically just saying, basically the appendix shall contain, right? Like the list of depositories and the written whatever. And we could just like look at it. The other thing I just wanted to kind of, so these are just kind of like things to flag, is anyway, like something for you to think about is basically just kind of like diversification, basically thinking about like the appropriate limits that we're holding in the, how much we should be holding in those investment accounts, and based on how much we're holding, how much we want to diversify. Internal controls, they had kind of suggested 10 days to transfer them as a standard. So I just wanted to flag that. I know sometimes we're a smaller town and we're not in here, so to be considered. You will notice that the designation of depositories is blank because I don't know where we bank, which is a really wild thing that I learned. And then the other thing, just to get really nerdy, is we do have to, in the securing deposits and investments, is that we have to select the method of collateralization we plan to utilize and omit the other options. So you'll see in the section 8 that all options are listed. The other thing, permitted investments. I just wanted to kind of point out that we had repos listed previously, which is like a real wild thing to have for such a small municipality. So you will notice they are not on here anymore. And that is also, anyway, previous thoughts. Anyway, then I just basically made a note in, where is it, permitted investments, just kind of like that this kind of points to, it'd be really helpful to have like a cash flow and a multi-year plan just to kind of talk about when you're taking stuff out. In section 10, again, there's kind of this supervisor shall maintain a list of financial institutions and dealers approved for investment purposes and establish limits. So basically, I just have noted here, hey, this is going to be added as an appendix. And then in section 14, basically
Well, back to 10,
yeah.
where we're permitted to buy our own bonds.
I just just pointed that out as a little note.
It seems a little bizarre.
It seemed a little bizarre to me too, but I was like, I was at the training and I was just like, just highlighting that seems bizarre, but okay.
So we use money in reserve to buy our own bonds to pay ourselves interest?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. That is a question that I have for the comptroller, but I was like, am I reading this right?
Yeah.
And I was like, seems wild to me, but anyway, that's just like a little fun fact I just threw in there, just because.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's totally fine. And then basically my other thing, section 14, basically that this should be reviewed annually. And then you'll notice that basically I just kind of put as part of that process, she'll revise and attach yearly an appendix to contain all those kind of things that we talked about above, list of financial institutions, the updated bond or official undertaking, and the list of depositories, and then the written internal controls procedure. My imagination is that we would just, there'd probably be like minimal edits on those yearly, but if they were just attached, because I know when we were looking at the first one, I was like, where are the things? And you're like, hold on, let me see if I could find them. And I was like, well, if we just had them attached to the policy, I think it would just be
Find appendix A.
easier. So anyway, thanks for coming with me on my journey.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if anybody had any specific questions on it, or
I'll have probably just a few edits, like a few edits here and there. I do want to check to see like the New York class, which is really the only place that the town invests money. It's like New York, let me see if I can get this right. Cooperative Liquid Asset Securities System, and municipalities around the state all invest in these. It's a better interest rate. It's secure. So I want to see, like, does that go under our depository name, or should it go in the list of places we're allowed to invest in? Right.
I think it would go in both, right?
Yeah, I just want to double check. Like, it might be, I'm not sure. Like, I started to go through it.
Because like the list of depositories, like where we have money,
Right.
Yeah.
that is where we have it.
But is it considered depository, or is it considered an investment? So just so that we properly categorize it.
Yeah. But regardless, it's been 20 years. I think it's time to just take a little look at this. Yeah.
Yeah, the repost, that's.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at it, I was like,
Ooh, makes sense.
what is this thing?
Yeah, and we have banks on here, like North Fork Bank, that doesn't
That
exist
doesn't
anymore.
exist anymore.
Yeah.
And our maximums are higher because 20 years later, they're different.
Exactly. So anyway, I don't know where we want to kind of go with this, if we want to take a look at it next time, or.
Yeah, we can, room on the agenda, we could put it on for next week.
Okay.
Now I've downloaded it to see that, yes, there are all these little
They're on.
notes. So we will
Yeah.
answer the questions raised there.
Yeah, and some of them, like I said, most of them are the ones I went through, and then some of them are just
Fun facts.
fun facts. Fun facts from Liz in the comptroller's office.
Good.
Thank you, Liz.
Yes, thank you
Thank
for
you.
taking lead on that, because it's just one of those things that never quite makes it up to, percolates to the top of the list. So I'm going to put a note for next week. We had 7 units. So our first person logs in. Board member reports. Actually, before we get on board member reports, we are looking for, and in some cases, in the midst of interviewing for planning board, we need a planning board member. It's listed on our town website. Green Options Committee, we're looking for someone there, and Health and Wellness Committee. We
Do
do.
the housing board and licensing report.
Yes, there's always Community Housing Board, although we are like hopefully wrapping up those interviews today. So that should be coming down.
There's 2 spots there, right?
Yes,
And
We had so many interviews.
we have
The most.
5 people.
yes, yes. So we're finishing up those interviews today. So hopefully we'll make decisions on that today. And then Licensing Review Board, we're always looking for someone there. So, yeah, 5 different committees, but hopefully it'll be down to 4 for today. WQI was last week. Yeah, we had a Cornell Cooperative Extension, talked about the shellfish seeding program, and Kate Rossi Snook was in, and she was very pleased with this past year and what they were able, where they were able to seed, and what they were seeing from those seedings. Tonic Bay Region Advisory Committee is moving forward. We had a meeting on January 16th. We have broken down into 3 subgroups for our next meeting. Drafting the rules for operations of the committee is like at the forefront. We need to get that done. So there's a few of us on that committee, and we'll be working on trying to get rules of operations. There's also a subcommittee that's looking at reviewing the amended law, because there's some things that need correction or clarity. So that subcommittee is going to work on it, but I think that we may, once we can get the committee up and running with its rules of operations, that can be a continuing effort, especially as we get requests from the various towns to take a look at things that will help us figure out, like, we have areas that we know need clarifying, but we'll get more, I'm sure, because people will be like, hey, like, we're reading it this way, what do you think? And then we also want to pull together rules and regulations for CPF acquisition and stewardship plans. But that's also something I think we want to try and push through getting the committee up and running. Hopefully by June, July is kind of where we're thinking it might happen. And then these other 2 areas of projects can continue on, so that we can start getting solicitation from towns. And I know we've got some things that we would like to have signed off on. So we'll review those when we get closer to being operational, to just make sure that we have a complete list. We'll know, like, when we can get them submitted, when we can get our questions submitted, and if we want to prioritize them getting answered. The committee recognizes that once we people start coming to us for advisory opinions, that we will need to work and meet more frequently in the first year, just to get sort of caught up. Hazard mitigation is continuing on. We've had a couple of meetings. We're meeting bi-weekly, and just put together our part of the plan. So when we get closer, that will get presented to the town board.
Okay, cool.
That's all I had. I went quickly.
All right, I have a few things. Green Options met back on January 15th, but we haven't had a meeting since then. They did get the first report back from, what is it, they've changed the name too many times, NREL. And so we have our big report. We're waiting on the approval for their presentation that they're going to give to us on the board. So as soon as we get that, then the Green Options Committee will schedule a presentation with the town board to show what we've been working on and what the results of that year and a half have been. Health and Wellness Committee met last Friday, and they're going to be doing a joint kind of educational opportunity with the library on SAD, seasonal affective disorder. So be aware that's coming up and should be very informative. On January 22nd, I met with the Monadnock Creek Keepers, Chris Gobler, and PEP to talk about the health of the creek and things we can do to improve the health of the creek. Dredging has always been one of those things that we talk about. A dredging project in the creek is probably upwards of $14 million because of the types of materials that we would have to dispose of. PEP is currently trying to get a very similar dredging project done in Southampton by their Oceanic and Marine Center. And it's a very similar type of project, and that's coming in at like $15 million. So the other things that came up, because we were like, that's not only a multi-year project with the applications and the DEC and the Army Corps and the grant funding and everything else that would need to happen, is what could we really focus on now to help improve the creek? And the big things that came up were not using fertilizers in the area that directly impacts the creek, and upgrading sanitary systems, because that nitrogen that's coming in through the groundwater is a big contributor. So the Mananac Creek Keepers are going to try to come up with kind of educational and promotional things to help inform the public about that. And then a few other things. I saw an email from the county. All of the voting machines are going to be changing this year. And so the county offered to come out and do a demonstration of the new voting equipment prior to the whole election period. And so I just wanted to run it by the board if you think it's a good idea to take them up on their offer, to have them come in and do a tutorial on all the equipment, so the public can come in and see it and test it and kind of get a feel for it before November.
Yeah,
So
I think I responded.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's great.
I flipped it to Kelly and Bethany.
Okay,
So, because I figured, if it's going to happen, it'll probably happen
In their
over at the-
space.
at the community center.
Okay.
And also the seniors, might be the ones that are most able to attend and
yeah.
check out what's going on. So they should be working on it. Can follow up with them.
Okay, great.
Good idea.
Yeah. And then Amber and I got together last week or the week before, I don't even remember anymore, and consolidated comp plan notes up through
Awesome.
chapter 5. But this is something I did last year and it went around, but now we have new board members. One of the things we should include in the comprehensive plan is the org chart for the town. And so I did an updated org chart last year and it got circulated. But I want everybody to kind of go over it, see if we need to do any tweaks, and then we should probably adopt it before we incorporate it. I don't know if it's something that needs to be adopted by resolution, but I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page and, they think that this looks accurate before we go and put it in the comp plan. And you don't have to obviously give me answers now, but look it over, mark it up, let me know if I forgot anything. The first time I did it, I did forget EMS, but I fixed that. Chief was kind enough to point that out. So just look that over and, if it's good, we can include it in the document. And I think that's all I had for now. Yeah.
Do you have more time?
Yeah,
I'll go as quick as I can.
yes, I was going to say, well,
So CAC met on the 6th. It looks like they're almost finished up with their notes on the wetlands code. So Howard just has to compile the notes. Maybe they're in. I have to check with Jessica. They're also working on the nature preserves report to get out this spring with the status and update on preserves properties. Howard and I met up and kind of he got me up to date on all the stuff that they are working on. And we talked about doing a review of the committee mission. Peconic Estuary, I went to that meeting. It was just a review of horseshoe crab and otter studies. Interesting. The other thing that was actually super interesting from that meeting was figuring out that basically when folks are unhardening their coastline, which is basically what we want them to do, unfortunately, the oversight ends up moving to the county, which ends up discouraging them from doing it, which is counterproductive. So that was one of the things that has to be addressed by the legislature. But anyway, it was an interesting kind of thing that anyway, it moves. And I was like, huh. Yeah, unintended consequence. I have some random housing notes. So we're moving forward with the LOI. So we have a rev out to them. That's great. And then separately, I think I had talked to you guys maybe before. Kevin from Grow America. I went to a one-day seminar on rental development housing finance. And he has offered generously to find me a scholarship for the 4-day housing self-paced. So I'll probably be doing that after tax season. So I'm super, super excited for that. This hazard mitigation, Amber and I are working on that. It's been really interesting. Basically, we're going over the 2020 plan. now meeting every 2 weeks. There's going to be public input that's going to be asked for, so I think that'll be going up on social media soon. And then just like some interesting things that we're kind of considering how economic factors kind of factor into responding to hazards. CPF, basically, that was great. They're working a lot on trail maintenance. And there's just like an acknowledgement that we need to update the acquisition plan, which is, I believe, is from 2019. So Kathy Kenny sent me an updated thing that they're working on. So I'm just going to be partnering with them to help move that forward. And then just like a community note that I feel like is really important to talk about. The boys basketball team did run their first home game in 5 years. And Evan Westlick, who's a junior, was the 8th social line student to score 1,000 points, and his jersey will be retired. So anyway, we should all be proud of those guys. That's what I got.
And the coach, and the coaches.
Yeah. Everybody, I include them in the team, but yeah. And the coaches, what? And everybody. And the cheerleaders. All the things.
I don't have anything.
Okay.
All right.
It's all covered already.
All right, we're going to leave the work session and go into executive session to cover potential property acquisitions, bids, contract, interviews. So, thank you, everybody.